Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Hello, everyone. Please excuse this the first episode here. Why can't I hear? Hello, everyone. How's it going? Hello, everyone. How's it going? Good evening, everyone. My name is Bidzina. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the Daily Buzz. I am Bidzina from BAAS, and I'm very excited to share this very new program for you. The Daily Buzz is a live show about bees, culture, curiosity, science, history, entertainment, and the fascinating world around us. This is not only a beekeeping show, it is not only a news show, it is a place where we look beyond what is beyond the headline and ask three important questions. What actually happened? Why does it really mean? What does it really mean? And most importantly, why should we care? Of course, we have alive thousands of bees on screen, and we're going to give them a little feeding right now as a celebratory feeding. And just on screen, you should see some food dispensed to the bees right in about 10 or 15 seconds. They did not attend planning the meeting. They did not read any of tonight's articles, and they definitely did not approve my opening monologue. But because this is our first episode, we are building the Daily Buzz together. Ask questions in the chat. Share your opinions. Tell me when you notice something interesting happening on the bee camera. And throughout the program, let me know which stories and segments you enjoy the most. Tonight, we have 5 major stories. First, we are examining whether probiotics and prebiotics could help honeybees cope with stressful temperatures. Then, we're traveling to Western Australia to explore an enormous reef that appears to rise out of the ocean only for a few hours each day. After that, we're looking at a surprising research involving spider-venom and Varroa mites. Then we take a trip to the moon, where we look at Apollo 11 moon landing, which happened on this day, July 20th, 1969, about 57 years ago. And we will finish off with a pop culture buzz, an enormous opening weekend for Chris Nolan's new movie, The Odyssey. Now, let's check over the live bee feeder and see what's going on. We will also check out the live bee feeder and then play Buzz or Busted, answer some viewer questions, and see what our bees decided to do during our first episode. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching, and because this is episode 1, let me know how you've discovered BAAS TV now. And here's tonight's opening question. Which of these would you like to most experience in person? Number 1, would you rather safely look inside a living honeycomb colony? Would you rather travel across a reef as it appears above the ocean? Or would you rather stand on the surface of the moon? Tell me your answers in the chat. I will try to get a poll going, but for now, try to answer those questions. For me, I think standing on the moon would be unbelievable, but let's move on to the next segment. So let's go on to Hive Watch. So let's take a close look at the bee camera and what's going on right now. So I'm just seeing they're feeding. I'm going to give them another little food squirt out right now, and it will fill up the bowl here in about 10 or 15 seconds. And I'm also seeing some of the bees in the, if you look closely at the entrance area where they're going in and out, they're bringing in some pollen, and this is they collect the pollen by going to a flower and then just trying to suck the nectar out. And then what happens, the flower gets attached to their hairs on their body, and then they use their hind legs to wipe it off of their hairs and then turn it into these little balls. So if you watch closely, I just saw one. If you watch closely, you will see bees going in and out. Well, they're going in with balls, pollen balls, they're called. Now, if you've noticed, some of the bees are also fanning, and this behavior is called fanning. And what they will do is they will stand at the front of the hive, and they'll do it in different types of moments. And one of the reasons they would do it is to cool down the hive. They would like to create airflow, kind of like an AC system. Well, they'll have bees going from the front of the entrance all the way up, and they'll create this AC system. They'll also use it as a way to signal their buddies to come over. Now, let's jump to the first article here. But before we do that, I'd just like to talk about the weather. And where we are in Calgary right now, it is a beautiful 25 degree day. Right now, it's 7:30 p.m. It's a little bit cloudy with about 43% humidity. And we had about a high of 30 degrees today and a low of 13 tonight. Now, let's jump in the first article here. So the first article here from The Guardian. Food supplements could help bees cope with climate crisis, research suggests. Insects in study fared better in cold when given a probiotic and prebiotic mix along with their usual sugar diet. Now, this thing wants us to log in, but we are just going to look at another article. So researchers recently studied whether combination of probiotics and prebiotics could help honeybees cope with stress. The study found that individual worker bees receiving a mixture containing a probiotics and inulin. Let's find out what inulin is. So inulin, oh no, that's not what we wanted. So bees, they're mixing probiotics and inulin. Inulin is a soluble plant-based prebiotic fiber that human body cannot digest. Interesting. So let's go back to the article here. So the study found the plant-derived probiotics survived prolonged cold exposure better than bees receiving ordinary sugar diet. However, supplements offered a little meaningful protection during extreme heat, and all of the tested bees died within days at 40 degrees Celsius. These two words, probiotic and prebiotic, sound almost identical. So let's separate them. A probiotic contains a microorganism intended to contribute to a microbial community. A prebiotic is a substance that can help feed or support certain microorganisms. In very simple terms, one may introduce microorganisms while the other may help provide them with resources. The idea behind this research is not simply to give bees more sugar, but researchers are asking whether nutrition and the microbial community inside a bee may influence how the bees respond to environmental stress. This is an interesting question for every beekeeper. It is especially interesting here in Alberta because our colonies experience very long winters, sudden changes in temperature, strong winds, and periods of extreme cold, and extended stresses when the bees cannot leave the hive to forage. So this is pretty promising. But where do we need to diagnose what the research really means? Does it mean that every bee should immediately purchase a human probiotic and add it to bee syrup? No. But please do no. And please do not experiment on your bees because one exciting headline. The research was conducted on isolated bees kept in laboratory cages, and a full honeybee colonies behave very differently from individual bees. During cold weather, bees gather in a cluster. However, this is debated right now in the beekeeping community whether if you want your bees to be gathering in a cluster during winter, or should they be far spread out properly in the beehive like they would be in spring or summer or fall time. But we won't be getting into that. During hot weather, workers can fan their wings to circulate air, as we have it demonstrated here on syrup. It looks like they're not really eating it anymore. I'm not exactly sure why, but we'll figure that out. They will also collect water and distribute it throughout the colony, and some bees may gather outside the entrance. Essentially, like what I'm kind of coming to is this is promising research, but it is not yet a complete management recommendation. A supplement cannot fix every underlying problem. It cannot replace adequate honey stores. It cannot replace diverse natural forests. It cannot replace effective Varroa management and treatment. It cannot turn a weak colony into a strong winter colony overnight. It cannot compensate for damaged hive, excessive moisture, and uncontrolled pests. But it is only one part. For us, a feeding decision should depend on the individual colony. How strong is it? How much food does it already have? What flowers are available? What is the weather doing? And so on and so forth. Now, I don't know. This is I really want to kind of read the article, but it looks like I can't because I got to log in here. This is not a paywall. Just see if we can sign in real quick. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So Dr. Najim Shabi is associate professor at the University of Zabul, Iran, and lead scientist in the study, said as nutritional shortage and pathogen in extreme weather to continue to compound one another, the study is relevant not only to pollinator health, but also to the broader ecosystem stability and the services the food systems depend on. The study finds suggests nutrition may give managed bees an additional line of defense against some extreme temperatures. Peter Greystock, an assistant professor in human and animal health in Imperial College of London, who was not involved in the study, said, "It is interesting that this suggests that microbes may be important for changes in climate, which isn't something that has been looked at very much." The research and independent experts made clear that the study was carried out on isolated cage bees, whereas full colonies in outdoor hives would respond to heat in ways that isolated workers cannot. So yeah, again, that's a big caveat. So I don't know. I think we're just going to leave this article alone at that because it looks like they tested it on individual bees rather than an entire colony. So we don't really know. Peter, I guess we're going to. All right. Now we're going to move on to another article. What in the world? Australia's disappearing ghost reef. So the title of the article from the Smithsonian Magazine.com by Rowan O'Connell, freelance writer. For 3 hours every day, open ocean transforms into Australia's ghost reef, an isolated wonder, some of 1,200 miles from the nearest city, Montenegro Reef. I'm having trouble saying that word. Montenegro Reef disappears as quickly as it appears, mirroring the vanishing of its original owners, a tribe of indigenous giants. Interesting. So this is known as the Wojab to the indigenous Australians. The inshore reef covers about 1,000 acres. The harsh Western Australian sunlight had been reflecting off a calm patch of Indian Ocean, making me squint as I sat in a tender boat, surveying the water for signs of mysterious natural wonder. Our timing was cursed, it seemed. In quotes, sorry, but the reef is not visible right now, although we will have a good visibility throughout the water. End quote. Tour guide Greg Watson apologized as the vessel motored away from our cruise ship towards Montenegro Reef, known as Wojab to the indigenous Australians. Before disappointment could take root, cheers erupted. It was nowhere until suddenly it was everywhere. Some 6,000 feet away, a huge coral shelf was ever so slowly rising out of the sea, like a theater stage being lifted by hydraulics. That was an optical illusion, however, as the reef remained stationary while the water obscuring it gradually receded. And we got another picture here. Most tourists encounter the reef's magic amid multi-day cruises of the Kimberley, which run from March to November and are especially popular during its dry winter from June to August. Ladies and gentlemen, it's another quote from Watson. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how quickly things can change here, Watson explained. Extreme tides are a key feature of Kimberley, a remote, wild region of Western Australia, and the cause of this daily spectacle, soon our boat was encircled by the world's largest inshore reef, teeming with rare creatures, and echoing with legend of vanished tribe of indigenous giants. That's interesting, huh? This is like this. They talk about giants in the Bible and stuff, right? So the indigenous people also talk about it. I mean, what is this word? Aren't we all indigenous? But anyways, covering about 1,000 acres, Wojab is one of the most remarkable reef systems on Earth, says Zoe Richards, a coral biologist at Curtin University, located 1,200 miles north of Perth, Western Australia's capital, and about 12 miles from the mainland. It protrudes out of the sea for only a few hours each day. That would be really cool. During low tide, Wojab can rise up 26 feet above the ocean surface, which is unmatched by any other reef Richards is aware of. Water trapped across the reef then pours over its edge and in cascading waterfalls, a dazzling event rarely seen out on a coral formation, she notes. That's when few hundred tourists arrive to witness this unique show, which typically lasts 2 to 3 hours. Some observe it from above during scenic helicopter day trips from the nearby towns of Broome and Derby. Most tourists, however, encounter the reef's magic amid multi-day cruises, which run from March to November. This is just a big ad for this freaking place. So Wojab's crocodiles what the hell is this? Let's see. What the hell? Oh, no way. This is what they're called. Dugong. Dugong? Wow. Fascinating. It's like a bottom feeder, looks like. It's at the bottom. Humpback dolphins. And black-tip... And black-tip sharks and green sea turtles can briefly become more marooned on the newly exposed reef before sliding down its slippery surface back into the safety of sea. Wojab is built primarily by coralline algae, and the algae forms low ridges around the edge of the reef that trap water as the tide falls, Richard explains. Over low tides, the reef top is transformed into a maze of shallow pools where corals, reef fish, and turtles and other marine life persists. Large animals such as dugongs and sharks withdraw to deeper channels and surrounding waters, waiting for up to 4 hours for the rising tide to reconnect to them with the productive feeding grounds that lie across the reef top. Wow, how crazy is that? So the water, this is like a phenomenon that happens. I'm not exactly sure of why this is a unique phenomenon. So the Kimberley is a larger than all but 3 U.S. states. Is larger than all but 3 U.S. states, covering 163,000 square miles, yet it feels empty. The Kimberley. Let's look at this. What the hell? Kimberley, Australia. Oh, I see. So this is what we're looking at here. Come on now. Well, we're just looking at this little corner. Okay, that's good enough. Yet it feels empty, almost half of whom are indigenous, with fewer than 40,000 residents, almost half of whom are indigenous Australians, rather than being homogeneous culture. Australia's almost a million indigenous people come from more than 200 traditional groups, each possessing distinct rituals and laws, languages. The Dambi Majigiti people are traditional owners of Wojab and nearby coastal lands. For 56,000 years, they moved as lightly as possible across this unique environment, only to watch colonial interlopers degraded after. You know what? This is, I don't know. This is very controversial. We're going to skip over this. The myths swirling the Montgomery Reef. Okay, I said it. The myths I was trying to say Montenegro for some reason. It's the myth swirly Montgomery Reef. Okay. Wojab's evocative origin story is part of a dream time an ancient set of lore and beliefs that underpin Australia's Aboriginal culture, explaining creation and offering guidebook to human life. This is just very weird. Intensifying Montague Reef mystique is the remarkable tale of indigenous people who supposedly stood up to 7 feet tall, known as Ya. I'm not saying this right. Like, what the hell? I'm not saying this right. How do we say this? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, everyone. Type feed the bees to feed the bees. See how the Swahili. Can't really hear anything. I don't know why. Maybe because. Whatever. Okay. The Yan E.G. Baya are so fascinated Australian archaeologist Sue O'Connor that she conducted field trips to those islands in the mid-1980s. Now a professor at Australian National University, she says this popular tale about was backed by evidence. What? What do you mean backed by evidence? So fast. I think all these statements about giants are nonsense, O'Connor says. Oh, she says not backed by evidence. There is no doubt that many of these coastal people near Wojab were very tall. That were very tall. The fact that the coastal people were also tall and well built, having regular access to protein from the seafood compared to the desert neighbors, may have given their rise to myth that they were giants. Should I say that in an Australian accent? I think all these statements about giants are nonsense, O'Connor says. This is more British. There is no doubt that there are many coastal near people. Wait, there's Sue O'Connor. Oh, she's a woman. I can't do a woman Australian accent. There's no doubt that many of the coastal people near Wojab were very tall. Oh, that sounds horrible. The fact that the coastal people were so tall and well built. Okay, we read that already. She also argues that the Wanyajabia people, I don't know, they disappeared. O'Connor points to research by late Australian anthropologist Norman Tyndale, who reported that the Ya, I'm just going to call them the Ya, integrated with the mainland indigenous Warora people in the early 1900s. At this time, there were missions established along the mainland coast, and they were bringing people into the islands. She says, rather than dying out as legends goes, the Ya people were just presence near Wojab. They live on through their descendants, like the Maori. That's my mob, he says of the protruded giants. We're all Wadinja people. Man, this is going on. Like, this is insane. Like, so why does this matter to us? Well, it is a natural wonder and a living cultural landscape. So that is why it is important to us. But I don't know. It's very interesting. I think we should move on to the next story, which is Could spider venom become a weapon against Varroa mites, the arch nemesis of bees? Article titled How Spider Venoms Could Stop Deadly Varroa Mites. New University of Sunshine Coast led research of Australia. University of Sunshine Coast, Australia. So who wrote this article? We don't know. Posted July 2nd, 2026, spider venom contains ingredients that could lead to new treatment to protect honeybees from deadly Varroa destructor mite. According to a study led by University of Sunshine Coast, researchers identified components in venoms of the Tasmanian cave spider and the giant Japanese funnel web spider that killed parasitic mites without harming the bees. Lead author, University USC Associate Professor Volker Herzing said that the discovery was the first step in finding new environmentally friendly way to combat Varroa mites, which are destroying honeybee colonies across the globe. They have an error here. Which are destroying. They're currently destroying. Okay, that's a freebie for Sunshine Coast. You can take that. You don't have to pay me, but the next one comes with the price. We screened 50 venoms, mostly from spiders and scorpions, by applying them to externally to the mites. We found more than 75% killed the mites within 24 hours. We selected 2 of the most potent spider venoms for further analysis, Dr. Herzing said. We isolated a specific compound called peptide from each of these two venoms and applied them to the bodies of Varroa mites. The peptides killed only the mites while the bees survived. These peptides, which we named HT, is that a 1 or an 8? I'm just gonna, if that was an I, it's HT1A and GG1A are fully biodegradable, and our findings suggest they could be developed into commercial and substantial treatment for Varroa mite infestations in honeybee hives. There's Herzing, Professor Herzing, holding the spider used for venomous extractions. Alternative treatments are urgently needed as mites become increasingly resistant to existing chemical pesticides, leading to widespread destruction of honeybee colonies in Australia and across much of the northern hemisphere. The study involved collaborators from UniSC, the University of Queensland, the University of Oslo, Ghent University in Belgium, and the Swiss Bee Research Center, Agroscope in Switzerland. Dr. Herzing said a new $50,000 community bee innovation grant fund from Queensland government would further the research. He said next steps would increase testing the 2 peptides and on honeybees carrying Varroa mites and applying them in mite-infested beehives to assess how they work under real conditions. The venoms used in study came from Dr. Herzing's Archind Venom Biobank. Whoa, this guy's got a biobank. Currently comprising of 640 spiders and 230 scorpion venoms, which is the largest in the world. We don't want this guy to be missing. Sunshine Coast Vice Chancellor and President Helen Bartlett said the research was making significant contributions towards solving global challenge. This world-class research led by is tackling one of the most urgent threats to global food security, she said. It reflects UniSC's commitment to sustainability with research aiming to protect agriculture and around the world. UniSC claimed top spot in Australia. Okay, this is pretty interesting and wild because I thought peptides were steroids. I don't mean, what are peptides? Peptides is a short chain of amino acids building blocks of protein. The fuck? Why can't I ask it? AI mode. Oh, there it was. Why are are peptides in steroids? I don't know. No, peptides are not. Peptides and delve cells are not. They're a completely different class of blah 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 mechanism. Peptides, short-term, how they normal side effects, legal status varies widely. Many are sold on a regular, such as research dose. Some require. So, peptide is just a word for. Is just a word. No, peptide is a science-specific physical, not just it is precise. What peptide? A real material, chemical size, natural. Why name confused? Because peptide is a broad category, not a single. Saying peptide is like saying the word vehicle. A bicycle, a delivery truck, and a fighter jet are completely different, but they're all physically vehicles. Okay, interesting. Similarly, insulin, a diabetic medication, copper peptide, skincare ingredient, and BPC, tissue repair, all completely different. Interesting. Yeah, this is big because if the bees are not dying and the Varroa mites are dying within 24 hours, this is insane. This is like, I've never heard of this because the current treatments that we do as beekeepers, they take generally on the course of a month to 2 months as a treatment. Like oxalic acid, you're doing a treatment every 7 days or every 5 days or something like that. Every 5 to 7 days over like you're doing that 5 or 6 times. So that's over like a month or 2-month period of formic pro pads. You leave that in there for like 40 days. Apivar 44 days. So this is promising. If they've come up with this will be very, very promising. So good on for you, University of Sunshine Coast. Keep it up. Now for the anniversary of Apollo 11 moon landing. One giant leap for mankind, one small step for man. What a crazy thing. You know, we're just gonna watch the video here actually, just real quick. Let's see if we can make it big of them doing this. And so this is supposedly the same video. Let's just watch. Incredible. Wow. Let's speed it up here. We can't speed it up. Oh, we can speed it up. 2x. So that's 2x. Wow, did you see that difference? Incredible how slow they move on the moon. We're at 2x speed right now. Was that the step? Oh no, that's it. So this is 2x speed, people. Wow. So about 57 years ago, July 20th, 1969, we had humans land on the moon. Now, this is a very controversial video that we just watched. We will get into that later, the controversy. But let's first read the article. On July 1969, it's a little over 8 years since the flights of Gagarin and Shepard, followed quickly by President Kennedy's challenge to put man on the moon. Just so we can remember here, it was the Soviet Union who first reached the space. I forgot his name. First person in space. What's his name? Yuri Gagarin or Gagarin. I don't know. I don't know how to say these names, man. Yuri Gagarin was the first person in space that we know of officially, because they have to do a bunch of test runs, right? And who knows how many times the test run failed. Apparently they sent a bunch of dogs up to space too. Let's do that. First dogs in space. Yeah, man, I told you, the Soviets. The first dogs in space were Zika and Itzigan. The hell? Interesting. Tiger. So, 8 years later, President Kennedy challenges to put a man on the moon before the decade is out. It is only 7 months since NASA made a bold decision to send Apollo 8 all the way to the moon on the first manned flight of the massive Saturn V rocket. Now, on the morning of July 16th, Apollo 11 astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins sit atop another Saturn V at the Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. The three-stage, 363-foot rocket will use its 7.5 million pounds of thrust to propel them into space and into history forever. At 9:32 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the engines fire. Apollo 11 clears the tower, and about 12 minutes later, the crew is in orbit. Should we play? I can't play. About one and a half orbits, Apollo 11 gets a go for what Mission Control calls translunar injection. In other words, it's time to head for the moon. 3 days later, the cruise is in lunar orbit. A day after, Armstrong and Aldrin climb into the lunar module Eagle, and begin the descent, while Colin orbits in the command module Columbia. Collins later writes that Eagle is the weirdest looking contraption I've ever seen in the sky, but it will prove its worth. When it comes time to set Eagle down in the Sea of Tranquility, Armstrong improvises, manually pivoting the ship past an area littered with boulders. During the final seconds of the descent, Eagle's computer is sounding alarm. It turns out to be a simple case of computer trying to do too many things at once. But as Aldrin will later point out, unfortunately, it came up when we did not want to be trying to solve these particular problems. When the lunar, oh my God, look at this. This is amazing. Wow. This is from 1969. Smoke and flame signal the opening of a historic journey. When the lunar module lands at 4:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only 30 seconds of fuel remain. Armstrong radios Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Mission Control erupts in celebration as tension breaks and controller tells the crew, "You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again." What? Armstrong will later confirm that the landing was his biggest concern, saying that the unknowns were rampant and there were just 1,000 things to worry about. At 10, see, this is the insane, yes, he's at so many things that could go wrong, but it did not. At 10:56 p.m. Eastern Time, Armstrong is ready to plant the first human foot on another world. With more than 500 million people watching on television, he climbs down the ladder and proclaims, "That's one small step for man, One giant leap for mankind. Aldrin, yeah, man, I just got goosebumps. That's insane. Aldrin joins him shortly. Buzz Aldrin, the Daily Buzz. The Buzz Aldrin joins them, offers a simple but powerful description of the lunar surface. Magnificent desolation. They explore the surface. Magnificent desolation. They explored the surface for 2.5 hours, collecting samples, taking photographs. Look at Buzz Aldrin climbs down the Eagle ladder to surface. Click image to enlarge. Incredible. Incredible. They leave behind an American flag and a patch honoring the fallen Apollo 1 crew and a plaque on one of Eagle's legs. It reads, "Here, men from planet of Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969. After death, we came in peace for all of mankind." Armstrong and Aldrin blast off and dock with Collins in Columbia. Collins later says, for the first time, he really felt that we were going to carry this thing off. The crew splashes down off of Hawaii, July 24th. Kennedy's challenge has been met. Men from Earth have walked on the moon and returned safely home. In an interview years later, Armstrong praises the hundreds and thousands of people behind the project. Every guy that's setting up tests, cranking the torque wrench, and so on is saying, man or woman, if anything goes wrong here, it's not going to be my fault. In post-flight press conference, Armstrong calls the flight a beginning of a new age. When Colin talks about the future journey to Mars, over the next 3.5 years, 10 astronauts will follow their footsteps. Gene Cernan, a commander of the last Apollo mission, leaves the lunar surface with these words, "We leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all of mankind." Wow. Wow, what a profound mission. Now, I mentioned earlier, should we just take it all in just before we get to that part? But yeah, it's what a profound mission. Yuri Gagarin, that's his name. Yuri Gagarin. That's how you say his name. Now, earlier I said there was controversy of this video. Well, the whole mission. People claim that didn't happen. I don't know. From what I understand, is it did happen. The footage got destroyed when they were traveling back in the radiation belt, and they had to recreate the footage. So that's why it seems fake. People think it's fake because the footage seems fake. But how would they be able to recreate something that they would not be able, that they never seen so accurately? Because we now have satellite images of the moon, modern pictures. So I don't know, but people, this is the big controversy: is that it's that we never actually went to the moon, and now they're claiming they're trying to go to Mars when we have never been to the moon. That's what they're claiming, like the conspiracy theories. I'm of the opinion that we did go to the moon, or we as in NASA went to the moon, and Buzz Aldrin and all those people that he mentioned. And they had lost the footage, or the footage got destroyed, and they had to recreate. So the footage is fake. So this video we did watch could be fake. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but the explanations people give are pretty promising. Speed 2x again. Jumps down. So let's watch that in regular speed. Interesting. They could have maybe even gotten clips of the footage and put the entire thing I don't know. I don't know. They said that recreating it would be more harder. Recreating it and lying to the entire people and faking it that they actually ever went to the moon would be a lot harder than actually going to the moon. But there it is, folks. There it is, folks. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Now, let's move on to the final pop culture buzz. We got here from the Associated Press. Nolan's The Odyssey storms box office with $264 million global debut, surpassing The Dark Knight, his Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey launched with the estimated $124 million in domestic ticket sales and another 139 in overseas, notching an even better debut than Oppenheimer and marking the filmmaker's best opening since the 2012 The Dark Knight Rises. Nolan flexed the singular box office might with global debut, unlike any other. With few filmmakers alive could pull off a starry, big-budgeted adaptation of Homer's epic poem. But in Hollywood, where intellectual property rights rule most hits, Nolan turned one of the world's oldest works of literature into an unlikely summer blockbuster. The Universal production was no small gamble on Nolan, coming off a 2023 Best Picture winning Oppenheimer. With a production budget of $250 million, it is among the most expensive R-rated movies ever made. Universal is spending some $125 million to market it. But the no behind the camera name turns out audiences more than Nolan. What? Turns out audiences more than Nolan's. So great was that the hype on the Odyssey that the IMAX put tickets on sale for more than 70 millimeter showtimes a full year in advance. To satisfy the extraordinary demand for Nolan's preferred format, IMAX 70 millimeters, some theaters added midnight and 3 a.m. screenings and sold them out. It's incredibly rewarding to see the palpable excitement in theaters this weekend, said Jim Ward, head of domestic distribution for Universal. Nolan has crafted an epic adventure, and it's a scale that audiences have responded extraordinarily well. IMAX ticket drives the sales, IMAX blah blah blah. Universal sees The Odyssey playing into the fall. Interesting. Casting controversy, this is what I want to get to. The casting controversy has no apparent effect. The Odyssey stars Matt Damon as Odysseus and features Holland as his son, Telemachus as Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Zendaya as Athena, Robert Pattinson as Suitor, Atenas, and Charlize Theron as the sea nymph Calpios. Nolan's casting The Odyssey, including Lupita Nyong'o as Helen and Elliot Page as a soldier, was controversial to some conservative commentators. Elon Musk called Nolan a coward for Nyong'o's casting. See, I'm on the opinion of this was a rage bait casting. You know, the only reason they did this type of casting was to create controversy, rage bait, and get people to talk about it. So I'm just going to skip over it. But the criticism had no little effect on the Odyssey becoming one of the big scream culture events of the year. Reviews 95% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes are among the best of Nolan's career. Audience gave it an A on Semina score. PG-rated films followed the wake of the Odyssey. The Walt Disney's Cosmo landed in distant second with $19 million in its third weekend, following its disappointing $43 million launch. But yeah, this was like what a like fumble in my opinion, right? Because they had $250 million to recreate the movie, and apparently it was really good. But they just, man, like you did not have to rage bait the audience to get them to watch it. Like I would have watched it anyways, you know. But what a movie, eh? Let me know in the comments if you guys have seen it. I have not seen it yet. I'm planning to watch it soon. But now we've reached the end of the very first episode of the Daily Buzz. But before we finish, let's return to the live hive. Let's return to our live hive and what changed during the hour. So I noticed, okay, so I gotta be fully transparent here. I changed my bee feed just recently, and the bees are not liking it as much. If you guys go through the past live streams that we've done of the bee cam, you can see that the bees are swarming this heart shape, but for some reason they're not liking it. So for next episode, we're gonna do a better bee feed here. Did you see any pollen coming in? The bees fanning, the food being shared? What sort of stories should we prepare next? Questions, all these kind of things. Let us know. So let's just do a little recap. Sorry. No. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for spending the part of your evening with me and the bees. This first episode is only the beginning. The Daily Buzz will continue to grow, improve, and evolve. Subscribe to BAAS TV now so you can join us for the next episode. Don't forget to turn on your notification bell. I'm Bidzina from BAAS TV now, and this has been episode 1 of the Daily Buzz. Bees, culture, curiosity, and the world around us. Join us tomorrow on a scheduled basis. We have yet to decide what time we're going to be doing it, but we're liking this 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So join us join us tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful